Jack Parsons, to me, is the greatest unknown, I don't know what to call him, philosopher, scientist, whatever he was. He was the greatest, he was one of the greatest men of the 20th century who was not known. Most people have heard of Buckminster Fuller and Albert Einstein and Aleister Crowley to some extent, James Joyce. Jack Parsons is virtually unknown, and yet he was more than anybody else responsible for the American space program and the fact that a man as that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. He's responsible for the whole space program, and he was one of the greatest libertarian philosophers who ever lived. His book, Freedom is a Two-Edged Sword, seems to me one of the greatest statements of libertarian philosophy ever written. And if I had $1 million, I would print enough copies of that to put one in every home in the United States so that everybody would have a chance to read it. I'm a very ardent libertarian myself, but I disagree with most libertarians about a lot of issues. Jack Parsons is the one libertarian I agree with about almost everything in the 20th century. There are some 19th century libertarians I agree with about almost everything, such as Lysander Spooner, Ezra Heywood, Benjamin Tucker, but they're almost all forgotten, like Jack Parsons. Libertarianism does not have much popularity, although this country was founded on libertarian principles. Jack Parsons was not only a great libertarian philosopher and a great scientist, but he was a very gifted and talented and philosophical and intelligent occultist, which is hard for a lot of people to understand. Most people think you're either a scientist or an occultist. You can't be both. Jack Parsons is the classic example of that you can be both. There are many other cases in history like Isaac Newton, Giordano Bruno, Johannes Kepler, but Parsons was the only one in recent times who was undoubtedly a major scientist, or at least a major engineer, which meant that he had to have a lot of basic scientific knowledge to be such a great engineer, and a major practicing occultist. And so the fact that he was a scientist, an occultist, and a libertarian makes him a tremendously fascinating and important figure. And the reason he's not generally known is because most people can't understand how you can put science, libertarianism, and occultism together in one head. And that's why Jack Parsons is so important. He did it, and he was probably murdered by the United States government just because of that. Either that or he died in an accident, depending on whose story you believe.